Wrapping up Women's Month, we dive into the tradition of surnames. India recently ruled that a child raised by its mother can't be compelled to carry its father's surname and can carry the mother's surname. Now, while this seems new, in Spain, people traditionally take on their mother's surname as their own, with the father's surname coming before their mother's last name when women marry. Then they retain their maiden surnames and never have to adopt their husband's surname. This tradition was first brought in by Catholic kings to track lineage, but the underlying fact is names aren't just labels, they're stories of heritage, equality and change. It's time for Kaleidoscope with me, Savithri Rodrigo, where stories truly matter. From the Kaleidoscope studios, Professor Vasuki Nesiah, artist Ranjith Perera, and the headlines that matter in a flash with CDB News in a Blink.
From historic depictions to studies of the leopard, Ranjit Pereira's canvases really make you feel amazed.
I used to see Miss David Painter doing the college chapels on a scaffold, and I was amazed.
Having spent years as a corporate leader in the rubber industry, Ranjit's works are a blend of classical precision with expressionist energy, a visual archive of Sri Lanka's rich cultural and natural heritage.
I love to do the street people. I have a special penchant for the poorer folks in the street kids, and they are amazing. The way they smile, what's in their eyes, it gives me a very nice feeling when I paint them.
Inspired by master muralist David Painter, Ranjit, a key figure in Sri Lanka's realist art movement, has had his works featured on international platforms and among private collections, while proceeds of a previous exhibition and a commissioned painting has gone towards cancer and marginalized children.
I'm a student of history, history, the Balana Satana, where the Portuguese were defeated at Balana, that's somewhere near Kalugannawa. That's my next project.
Catch Kaleidoscope everywhere: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn. We are on every screen. We are powered by SriLanka Live, CDB and The Daily Morning, and we bring you the stories that matter most.
Cool appetizer. CDB Self. Introducing CDB Self, the digital wallet that makes life easy. CDB Self.
And here's this week's head-turning headlines on CDB News in a Blink. The ADB increases its funding to $480 million with an immediate release of $200 million. Sri Lanka is ranked 79th in the world for ease of doing business in and with. Sri Lanka and the ICRC will create a consolidated national database for missing persons. And in our markets this week, at the Colombo Stock Exchange, the all-share price index, after dropping to nearly 20,000 points, rebounded to 21,800 levels, with more investor optimism returning on the back of more positive news from the Middle East. Oil prices fell sharply. WTI is at $88 per barrel with the easing of the Middle East conflict and large crude inventory buildup in the US. Taking advantage of the price drop, Indian refiners have struck deals for the purchase of some 60 million barrels of Russian crude to be delivered in April. Gold prices fell to $4,500 per ounce levels as a stronger US dollar and higher treasury yields proved more attractive. K-pop icons BTS breaks the record for the most streamed K-pop album in Spotify history with its newest album, Arirang. Philadelphia International Airport sets a Guinness World Record for the longest line of cheesesteak sandwiches with 1,291 sandwiches.
You focus on your goals. We will take care of the risks. SriLanka Life.
From war zones to world courts, feminism has reshaped global policy. But has global policy reshaped feminism in return? Today on Kaleidoscope Dialogues, we are joined by Professor Vasuki Nesiah, a recipient of the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Faculty Award at NYU, a legal scholar, feminist thinker, and one of the sharpest critics of how gender, power, and conflict intersect in global governments. She discusses her book, International Conflict Feminism, which asks an uncomfortable question. What happens when feminism gains a seat at the table of war, law, and international power? So you describe international conflict feminism as a project within global power rather than a movement. When did feminism gain influence and what did it risk losing in that process?
In many ways, this book is partly about feminism that gained influence through the end of the Cold War. So in 1989, as the Berlin Wall fell, we sort of woke up in the 90s into a unipolar world where the US and American agendas dominated. And one of the things, one of the elements of that is that you suddenly had imperialism with a liberal face. That merger between a particular form of liberalism and imperialism became sort of the stepping stone or the staging platform for a new form of feminism on the global stage as well, that had its predecessors and in things that have emerged since. But really, that's I think the moment.
So sexual violence becomes the dominant way women in conflict are seen. When does visibility turn into a limiting frame?
In so much of our history, sexual violence has been ignored, not given the attention that it should get because of shame and stigma. And it is of course a huge concern, both in terms of peace and in terms of conflict. But of course, if it becomes a sole focus of feminist agendas, then it also has costs. And I would say off the top of my head, the three sort of particular costs that I would want to highlight. One is that women are affected by conflict in a whole range of different ways. Sexual violence is only one dimension of it. So it also crowds out, say, a focus on land rights, a focus on displacement. Women are sort of by and large, the largest percentage of groups who are displaced. On all of those things don't get the attention that they deserve. Secondly, that you have a particular kind of, the sexual violence comes with it often with a particular kind of sexual morality, where men are seen as ones with sexual agency and women are seen only as victims. And I think this denial of agency is also a problem for a feminist agenda. So it shouldn't be the thing that feminists themselves advance. And thirdly, that men are also victims in conflict, and including victims in sexual violence.
So SCR 1325, widely celebrated as a feminist milestone because the UN Security Council recognized women's crucial role in peace and security. Now, in hindsight, was it liberation or was it institutional absorption?
What do you give up to have a seat at the table? Being able to have a gender issue being taken up in Security Council, which it hadn't, was a huge advance. On the other hand, it quickly became also, Afghanistan was bombed in the name of feminism. It quickly became, in some sense, a tool of Security Council, as opposed to making the Security Council a more feminist and revolutionary space.
So there are dissident feminisms that appear right throughout your book, anti-war, decolonial, grassroots. What would it take for these voices to shape the global agendas again?
Many feminist groups in the context of Gaza, for instance, drew attention not only to sexual violence, but also to the fact that, when hospitals were being bombed, women were having cesareans without anesthesia. Those kinds of things are also feminist issues. When land is being dispossessed of land in a large scale, those are feminist issues. So one is about changing the agenda, changing the conversation, and then and in solidarity with local groups and having a sense of what their agendas are and what their priorities are.
We've rounded off Women's Month with stories of courage, change, and identity. Here's to you, trailblazers, changemakers, and dreamers. Until next week, keep inspiring the world.